Hi, I'm Ian Humphreys, and welcome back to the UK Medical Freedom Alliance, our special TV station and our audio podcast station too. Today, I'm going to be talking to Dr. Teck Khong. He's the leader of the Alliance for Democracy and Freedom. He's a former GP, spent 40 years doing that job, so he knows what he's talking about, and he knows a lot about politics and a lot of other things too. A really, really interesting conversation coming up, so please join me after this. Welcome to another broadcast by the UK Medical Freedom Alliance, the UK's most recognised and respected organisation advocating for every individual's right to informed consent, bodily autonomy and medical choice. We are the UK's voice of ethical medicine. Teck, thank you so much for joining me again. It's been a year. Almost exactly, I think, since we last spoke, which is just crazy. It's gone so quickly. And so much has happened in that time. And it's really been a race to try and keep up with everything that's been happening and changing. And the world has possibly taken a turn for the better, but that probably remains to be seen too.
Anyway, good to see you, Ian.
Yeah, quite often say to my friends, what we'll do is we'll sit back with the popcorn and watch the theatre, I think, and see how it transpires. But no, I wondered what's happened to you in the last year or so. Has anything major changed for you in the Alliance for Democracy and Freedom?
Well, we've always been active in trying to expand the freedom movement, as it were, within the political scene. So we've had, just before the general election, we had a meeting in Bromyard where we met with representatives and leaders from the English Democrats, UKIP, Freedom Alliance, the Populist Party, and a very small party called Putting Crew First. Yes, we also had Libertarian Party there. So it was quite a big meeting. And the outcome of that was that we agreed to work together. And that was April. So when the elections came along in July, we fielded 34 candidates in a sort of electoral pack where we don't stand on each other's toes, as it were, and where we had a candidate from one party, the other members of the other party, our parties would support them. So we didn't achieve any success, obviously. Otherwise, you'd be hearing big noises about a new MP. But I think it was a good start. It was a good start indeed. I think the general election results have turned out to be very disappointing. We have a new Prime Minister who doesn't seem to adhere to his manifesto promises and has created a lot of angst in the country.
So in terms of the sort of collaborations that you had, which I suppose that deals with the first word of your party's name, the Alliance.
That's right.
Was there much in alignment? Was it all in alignment, or are there still some sort of niggly differences that you have to deal with?
I think there are always nuances of in ideology, differences in ideology. For example, we had a party say that one of the members was a bit too much to the right, and then another party says a bit too much to the left. I think the essence of the Alliance, and in fact, although we are registered as a political party, I like to see it as more as a movement with candidates. The situation with alignment, I think, is not important because we have a common enemy. And speaking to former ITV producer Richard Jeffs, I think the pressing need is to actually find common ground and work towards restoring some semblance of normality in our country. So I think it's important, it's imperative, in fact, that we set aside our differences. So whether we emphasize education or health or whatever it is, the main thrust should be to restore unity in the country, regain British ascendancy on the international scene, and at the level of daily lives, we want to ensure that people's needs are properly served. So you've seen how President Trump, on entering the office, with gusto issued loads of executive orders, and he followed them through. Now, we need some sort of leadership in this country to set out what our vision is, where we want to be, while at the same time look after the daily needs, some very ordinary needs of, the average man on the street, as it were.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose you don't necessarily have to agree with everything that he's doing either, but it's just the fact that he's got the strength of leadership to carry it through, isn't it? I mean, and that's something that we just don't seem to have and haven't had for a very long time. Everything's, from a political point of view, it just feels so wishy-washy, which is why I think people don't know who to actually align with, who to hang their hat on and say, yes, this is, someone who's representing me.
He has, President Trump has a few catchphrases: "Make America healthy again," and "Make America great again." I think those are the two main sound bites we need to hang our coat on. So we got to look at ourselves. Do we really want our country to be subservient to external supranational organizations, globalist, mega-rich people, or do we want to steer our own destiny? So we've got to look after our own people, and I don't think that's in dispute at all. We hear a lot of people upset about, the constant flow of illegal immigration, people who are very angry about what's happening to their traditions and the threats to life, the Southport murders. Those are extremely bad things, and we really need to clear that up. So we need a strong leader. And to find a strong leader, I think we need to unite all like-minded people under one banner. Now, as I said earlier, Alliance for Democracy and Freedom, although registered as a political party, we are happy to work with anyone and everyone who has the national interest at heart. That is first and foremost. And in fact, when we did our first merger, we were well on to our second one. It didn't matter whether we kept our name, we have a new name, or whatever it is. I think the important focus is to restore, as I say, I keep saying this, it might sound a bit repetitive, restore our national pride.
No, I think that's very important. And, yes. And from a health point of view, which is obviously our angle when it comes to bodily autonomy and informed consent, etc., again, we need people to stand up for that too, and to again not adopt what I call this wishy-washy approach where you listen to that narrative and blow with the wind and go. There needs to be someone that's going to stand up and say, no, these are the ethical ways of performing medical treatment, for diagnosis and for treatment on from there. And we're going to stand up for that, and that's how it's going to be. And yeah, I think maybe Trump did actually speak in those terms as well, didn't he? And they've also decided they're coming out of the World Health Organization.
Yes, that's right. So it's very simple. I think if we keep focused on two key things: get our national interests sorted out. Second, look after our people.
Right.
There's no greater vehicle. Without health, you can't achieve anything. You can have all the money in the world. If you're heading for death, it isn't going to be good for you.
No, and also I would have thought that if any government that looks after its people and keeps them healthy, surely are going to get the support of those people, aren't they? That would seem fairly obvious. And for some reason, that does not seem to be the way they're performing.
Right. So I've spent the last few months trying to persuade my colleagues and supporters that we need to stop complaining. We need to focus more on getting action, getting things done. So whilst I would not hinder, enthusiasts and activists going on marches and writing petitions, they do not add up to anything substantial. So we've got to concentrate our efforts on deciding the best way to actually achieve the results that we want. So that's very important. Now, when people start writing petitions, I ask them, why do you do that? And they say, well, we're very, very upset and very angry. So I say, look, we had recently a petition to call for general election again, and that had over 3 million signatures. And yet it was dismissed rather perfunctorily at the parliamentary level. Okay? So what we need to do is, instead of thinking we're going to write letters and hope that the parliamentarians will listen, we've got to come up with some cogent plans. So I went back to a couple of people who said, we really need to do something about it. And I said, look, the fact that you're actually getting a petition off suggests to me you are angry and you're distressed. And if you're not going to achieve results by merely writing an MP or submitting a petition, then think about why you're not being listened to. So if your MP is not listening to you and it's causing you a lot of distress, I think you should start complaining along the lines of distress and alarm. So there is a code to lodge a complaint under Section 4 Public Order Act. You're distressed, you've gone out to march, you've gone out to petition and all sorts. And try and get enough people to make that order stick. Now, when that order sticks, what you do then is you present it to the Electoral Commission and say, look, there is a huge complaint and we want to have a recall. So if you can get more than 10% of the constituents signing a recall order, there will be a recall.
What's the best way to get hold of the constituents so that they're aware of the attempt to recall in the first place? How do you reach people?
If you look at the rules of the Electoral Commission on recall, there are actually very few. I think there are just four ways of actually initiating a recall. So a criminal record will certainly start the process of recall. So if you can make a police complaint and initiate that to be a breach of peace, a crime, get a crime order, you should then get enough constituents. Basically 10% is the threshold. 10% of the electorate must complain and sign the petition and get the recall order initiated. So that's one way. There are certainly more active measures, more aggressive measures like non-compliance, not paying taxes and so on, trying to bring down government. I'm not familiar with those, but I was really interested in learning about how a recall can be put in motion. Now, if there are a few constituencies initiating that sort of process, we can start to rattle the government because, after all, the MP might nonchalantly turn away or arrogantly dismiss any complaints of inattentiveness. What you do is you say, look, we're going to unseat you if you're not careful. You should be listening and working for us, not some supranational organisation or some external influences.
Please consider donating to the UKMFA. We are really grateful for all donations, no matter how small. Your donations enable us to continue to lobby for your right to informed consent and medical freedom to be upheld, and to provide resources to educate and empower the public. There are multiple options for donating. One is that you can scan the QR code that's on this video right now, or you can go to the link that is featured in the description below this video, or you can go onto our website and contribute via donor box, or you can buy us a coffee. Yeah, I just wondered how you reach the electorate, though, to get those people to get that 10% on your side and to get them to sign. I mean,
I think we all need to do our part to encourage people, inform people of these processes. So that's one level. That's actually trying to change your MP into somebody who's more attentive and perhaps work for you, which clearly the majority aren't. The second, I think, closer to health is looming in a couple of months' time is the local elections. Now, a lot of people think health policy is legislated at a national level. Regulations are handed down from Parliament to, the NHS to then run the service and deliver whatever provisions that people need. But a lot of responsibility has been devolved to local councils 12 years ago. So if we examine the role of the council in health and healthcare delivery, then we're starting to make sense and start to see a way forward. Now, what I mean by that is it is in the remit of the local council to ensure health. So when I was working as a GP, I was actually in charge of a step-up organisation, sort of a council facility which interfaces between a GP and the hospitals. So when somebody was ready for discharge but not quite ready with home circumstances, or the treatment has stabilised and they just need further improvement, they go to this accommodation, and in Leicester it was called Brookside Court. So I looked after Brookside Court, and it was very interesting because it also acted as a way station for those people who are getting worse but not ready quite for admission or requiring admission. They will go into this Brookside Court, and then when the bed becomes available, they're stepped up into the hospital responsibility and they're admitted. So what we need to do is, if that is within a council remit, we can certainly improve services and improve the flow of discharges from the hospitals. We need to do that. Now, when I looked at the Local Government Association, LGA website, on what local councillors can do, they're all listening to a very old hymn sheet, and they're all playing the same record over and over again. Nobody seems to be breaking the mold. If they've been given a remit that has really very broad responsibilities, they should seize that opportunity and change things for the better. Instead of playing to the same old tune, go to the council chamber, talk about this, talk about that, is to say, look, we are going to initiate this. So if we have out of hours facility, we're going to have a doctor there, we're going to change the working practices, we're going to triage things, and so on. So working practices needs to change before we can effect improvement in health. So healthcare delivery actually comes before health. Whereas if you look at the LGA website, they'll say, well, the primary role of council is to ensure health, and healthcare delivery is secondary, and it's devolved to it belongs to the NHS. I would say, until you actually improve the healthcare delivery, which is at the moment suffering severe roadblocks in terms of general practice patients jamming up the A&E departments, unless you free that up. And until the councils step in and say, look, we're going to help with clearing this backlog, we're going to change the attitude of GPs to see their patients where they should be seen, you're not going to have any improvement. So you've got to first clear the backlog of healthcare problems before you can attend to health. You can't just say, look, eat properly, sleep longer, and have fresh air and exercise and hope diseases go away. It doesn't work like that. You've got to clear the diseases, deal with people on chronic conditions, those people with broken arms, legs, and so on. So you've got to clear the list first before you say, right, we're going to do health. I'm not saying that you don't do health all the time. What I'm saying is you don't expect a healthy person never to break a leg. Do you see what I mean?
It's interesting you say that, because I wonder what GPs are doing right now. I mean, I've had
that's a different story. You see, I'm going to I'm going to speak in Thetford on the 22nd. A lot of people don't realise, when I first entered general practice, I was paid in a very different way compared to when I left general practice 4 years ago. And what it was is this. The majority of my income when I first entered general practice came from capitation. So the better I looked after people, the better my reputation, the kinder I am, more compassionate, achieve results, and all that sort of thing, the better my list size, the bigger the list size I have, and the more prosperous I became. Target payments were, by comparison, a lot fewer. So there were things like cervical smear, childhood immunizations, and night visits, and so on. And I would say roughly about 50-60% of my income then came from capitation. Towards the end of my career, capitation was a very small figure, something closer to 10%, at best 20%. And the vast majority was made up of hitting targets. So I happily tell the story of a time when Leicester Mercury published the popularity of GPs by patient polling, and my practice was right at the top. And within a few months, there was another publication where they listed GP income, and mine was at the bottom. And I was even told by my practice manager that my practice would be at risk. It would be put in special measures. I say, well, special measures for what? Not hitting the targets or not looking after my patients? You see. So it's become very bad. I mean, I remember once I stood up at what we call it, in those days it was a CCG meeting, where all the doctors have a half day. One day a month we have a postgraduate day, and we gather along in a special venue where I think there are about 200 doctors will meet, discuss scientific topics, clinical problems, how to do this, how to do that. And then policy will also be discussed, and any changes in the way we are remunerated will also be talked about by the chairman and chief executive. So anyway, so there was once, I think it was back in 2012, something like that, and there was a proposal to encourage doctors to complete end-of-life care pathway. And the inducement was something close to £100 a patient. And I stood up, to my horror, I said, look, we're trained doctors. We don't need a structured, a rigid end-of-life care pathway that defines what a patient would need, because we're all different. And to actually incentivize doctors to participate in the scheme with financial inducements, I say it goes against all standards of ethical professionalism.
It just sounds completely immoral to me.
It is. But, the managers have started over time, have begun to use the tool of financial incentives to undermine professionalism. And that is, I think, is one of the greatest tragedy to our service in this country. I have no objection to doctors making money if it's based on high caliber, good acumen, fine outcomes and so on. But we cannot subvert professionalism with financial inducements to meet targets. Some of the targets are absolutely meaningless. We were told if you could get so many people off cigarettes, you'd be given so much money. If you can identify ethnicity of a person, you get so much money. Everything was down to money. If you looked at the 2024, I think if you Google I think I did a couple of years ago, if you put in Google GP remuneration, you get two young doctors coming up on your browser saying, this is the way to maximize your income by meeting this target and meeting that target. But excuse me, medicine isn't about meeting targets. Medicine is about getting people back to working order again. Absolutely.
And so that's why I was wondering what GPs are doing now. How are they making their money? I mean, what is really odd for me is I've had two interactions recently with my GP surgery. One was a telephone consultation, which was really quite meaningless. It was only as a result of me being discharged elsewhere by a consultant for something else. So it was just a call to see whether I wanted any pharmaceuticals to support me. To which I said, no, thank you. I don't need any pharmaceuticals to do this. I can manage it with diet and exercise and I'll be fine, thank you. To which they then, again, tried to get me to take another pharmaceutical. And I said, no, you didn't understand me first time. And I said, the answer is no. So then it leads me to wonder, well, does it mean if they prescribe this particular pharmaceutical, again, they get something that goes against a target or an incentive? I don't know, but it feels like it. But then I attended the doctor's surgery to pick up a blood test form, and it was deserted. There was no one there. Supposedly, we were going through some serious flu problem at the moment, and all the hospitals are full of people, and yet there's no one in the doctor's surgery at all. I just find that very bizarre. I can't.
It is. So, I think the whole system needs a shake-up. I mean, I really can't understand. For example, when I started working, I had 2 surgeries a day, and then in conjunction with another practice, I had open appointments in the morning. People just came in, and if they came in within the hours of 9 and 12, they'll be seen. So we accommodated as many people as possible, and things will run very smoothly. People were satisfied. Nowadays, the doctor seems so remote. The first person of contact is usually either a nurse or a care practitioner. The doctor has become so remote, and what's he trained for? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well. Also, I understood as well that pharmacies were supposed to take over some of the strain that the GPs were under, so they could start to do some small treatments or offer small treatments. But then a lot of the pharmacies seem to be closing down too. So
yes, no, it's not right. It's not right. I have a very good story to tell. I mean, there was a patient who had an unusual rash on her hand, and she went to the chemist. They wanted to trouble the GP, and the chemist says, "Oh, it looks like an allergic rash. We'll give you some steroid cream that you can get over the counter." It didn't improve, and it started becoming worse and then painful. And she came along to see me. I said, "What did you put on this?" He said, "Well, some steroid cream the chemist gave me." Now, this is the thing, you see. If a doctor is trained properly and accessible to the patient, this problem wouldn't have happened. What the lady had was the beginnings of shingles in her hand. Now, a chemist, he was a very good chemist, nothing wrong with that, but he isn't trained or should bear any responsibility, any medical responsibility for the diagnosis of a medical condition. All right? So the patient came to me a few days late, when if she had come to see me early on enough, she would have been given an antiviral, dealt with her shingles, and wouldn't be left with post-herpetic neuralgia. So when I was on the CCG board, we talked about changing the way hospitals work, encouraging the hospitals to work differently. We say, look, when somebody steps into the A&E department, the first person they should see is somebody who's fairly senior or the most senior decision maker. Not go through the receptionist, to the junior nurse, to the senior nurse, to the junior doctor, to the mid-rank registrar before something gets, if it's serious enough, gets escalated. Now, all these people would need to work. I mean, the junior doctor would need to learn and so on. But it was so much easier if the senior decision maker say, look, yep, Mrs. So-and-so, your problem, you really need to go back to see your GP, or this is quite serious, let's do some investigations and then send the results to your GP for the correct referral. So these are the things that need to be sorted out. Working practices are not in the patient's best interest, okay? So if you make people triage and people hang around in casualty, tempers flare, people get sick. There are people dying waiting to see GPs and see doctors in A&E departments. Scandalous. I mean, a couple of years back, there was a retired consultant who, he was a stroke consultant, and he had a stroke himself, just waiting to be seen. It can't be right.
Find out more about the UK Medical Freedom Alliance on our website. That's at ukmedfreedom.org. That's ukmedfreedom.org, where you'll find all the information you need around open letters, our campaigns, our legal template letters, and of course, even these podcasts. You'll find details of the latest one, and you'll be able to access the previous ones too via the links there. Find out more about our team. sign up for our newsletter. It's all there, and you can even donate too. And I understand as well, GPs are now starting to be moved into the hospital environment as well. And I mean, do you think that's a good thing, or does that remove them from their community a bit?
It's a very long, big topic. I think last time when I was on your show, I think I talked about the tripartite compact, where you have the government that takes money from the people. So that's one part of it, and then pay the doctors to look after the people. The tripartite compact is full of anomalies within each of those 3 points, and the interactions between those 3 points need to be sorted out. How we go forward, I have worked out different plans. I mean, in 2009, I visited Singapore and learned about the system. I met with my school friend who actually was the medical director of Singapore's medical services, Professor Satku. So I came away from that. I looked at the Australian system, looked at the Singaporean system, look at the Malaysian system, and look at the UK system, and put them all side by side. And certain things are actually predicated on cultural values. For example, the Singapore system works because the underlying ethos is a very strong work ethic. So there's very little unemployment. People contribute, and you have a thriving system. Now, in our country, where there is a high degree of dependency on the state, a different system needs to work. But we also have, undeniably, a pluralistic society, a pluralistic way of achieving economic stability. We need to be mindful of not only looking after the people. A state-dominant system that looks after the people, unfortunately, is also hampered by a tendency towards mediocrity. So we should encourage people to have financial autonomy. So in my plans, if I ever was invited to help assist in government planning, is to take all these things into consideration and come up with a cogent solution that works for our country. It's no point saying we're going to import this system from Sweden or import this from Singapore or Australia. We've got to have a system that fits our society. And at the same time, we've got to encourage societal changes that would stabilize and enhance any care plan that you want for it.
So with your expertise, have you considered an approach to someone, let's say to reform, who looks like they could stand a good chance of getting into government next time? We don't know, but
yes, indeed. Only last night there was some kerfuffle about whether I was interested. Look here, I'm a retired GP. I have enough to get by. I'm not an especially affluent man, but I think it's a shame that where there are a lot of colleagues who are better qualified than me, superior doctors with chains of qualifications and diplomas and so on. I was a GP with an interest in law. I was working as a police surgeon. I sat on different panels and I gained insight, which I think over 40 years working at the coalface, at frontline medicine, as well as knowing how management behaves, I think it's a very rich and deep experience that I would say would be very usefully deployed in government, and I would like to help. So, for example, it made me laugh when Tony Blair invited Lord Darcy into the health ministry. But Lord Darcy is a very clever man. He's very good in robotic surgery and so on. But for him to actually say, look, I think the solution to NHS problems, especially in general practice, is to have mega health centres. With due respect, Lord Darcy, I respect his technical skills, but for him to enunciate that we need mega centres, a lot of these centres, when they were built, were underoccupied, underutilised. So it was clearly a white elephant. We need somebody. And I humbly say, having worked from way back in the late 70s to for 40 odd years, I think having the observation as well as the experience, I think, puts me in a unique position to offer assistance.
I think you're right. From what you've told me, given say not just the medical experience, but you've got a good appreciation of politics. You've started a party, so therefore that speaks for itself. So yes,
it's passion, Ian. I want to, you may well know I was born in a British colony many years ago, and I came here as a medical student. And I stayed on. I did research. I became very interested in research, and this is my repayment of gratitude, for want of better words. I'm so proud and happy that this country has become my home, and if nothing, this is my way of giving back the skills I've learned, giving back the experience I've developed over the years, and I think it shouldn't be missed at all. Now, I said to somebody who questioned my motives, I said, look, there was something very wrong with the government policies on COVID. The rollout of the immunization program breached ethical standards. There was no informed consent. It was a phase 3 clinical product launched not just to a small group of population, but across the entire population, under a very coercive situation. We were not allowed to talk about it. Colleagues who dare question it or even mention repurposed drugs were censured. One or two were even struck off. So those draconian behavior of government is most unconscionable. What I would say is this. I say any party that wants to win and become the next government cannot ignore the weight of people suffering from the harm that the COVID immunization has given them. So I would suggest that you might say, oh, yes, we have an inquiry. Inquiries achieve nothing. Okay? In November 2020, I asked for a moratorium, having come across serious events, undoubtedly related causal links between the vaccination and the appearance of a pathology. I said there must be a moratorium. We do not know enough. There is no pharmacovigilance. You don't give people an experimental shot and not follow them up. And then when they do turn up with symptoms, you don't tell them, oh, it's a coincidence, oh, it will go away. You don't say things like that. That's awful. So I want anybody sincere about becoming government apologize for any misguidance they've given the people.
Absolutely.
You cannot move forward. You cannot move forward until you apologize, accept that you've made an error, and then move on.
But of course,
I think that's fundamental.
Yeah. So we've just come to the end of this module 4 of part of the inquiry, the COVID inquiry, which is talks about vaccination. They've supposedly talked to some vaccine injured and representatives of vaccine injured. However, very, very few. And from what I've seen of that inquiry, I don't know what you think, but it's so one-sided. There is the way they approach every single witness and every single question is basically saying it was a brilliant rollout. They've saved millions and millions and millions of lives. And
how do they know? How do they know it saved millions of lives?
Exactly.
Have they actually done control population? Have they done national studies? Have they controlled, say, looked at Sweden, where there was looked at different populations, corrected for age and sex and whatever, and then see? Have you checked the results? How lethal is it?
I'm so simplistic in my approach sometimes, but it reminds me of an old joke where the guy's standing on the corner of the road clapping his hands.
Yep.
And someone approaches him and says, "Why are you standing there clapping your hands?" He says, "Well, it's to keep all the elephants away." Mm-hmm. And they said, "But there aren't any elephants around here." And he says, "Yeah, it works well then, doesn't it?"
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And that's what it feels like to me. But they can claim anything. They could say it saved anything, couldn't they? Because they've got no idea. They can't possibly have any idea.
I don't need many examples. One life lost is enough to shut something down. When I was in clinical trials, when I was a research registrar in medicine, one fatality was enough to shut it down. Yet you have somebody like Lisa Shaw, the coroner certified that thrombosis was due to the vaccine. The rollout continued with impunity.
Yeah, Stephen Wright, another one, doctor, he died early. Obviously, I mean, you may have seen some of the other people I've interviewed this year. You know, it lost so many people.
Right. Ian, those are reports, and those we see on the occasions that mainstream media let us know about them. But when I see a young child, 15, getting myocarditis proven, previously healthy, very healthy, okay, with proven enzymatic changes indicative of myocarditis following the injection, that was horrific. Yet, despite writing that in Daily Express, an article which I had to detune before they published it. So in February of 2021, I said, look, we should not trial this in children. And then further down the line, I saw this 15-year-old. It was terrible. I tell you, it was heartbreaking. Now, if that was your child, you'd be very, very angry, wouldn't you?
Absolutely, of course.
So why is there no moratorium? Why is this still being rolled out? Why do we keep doing this to our people?
That's the $64 million question, as I say, isn't it?
And you know, parliamentarians have a responsibility. They are here to serve the people who elected them. They seem to be serving somebody else.
Well, they always seem to be serving someone else, and most of the people they're serving are not in this country. They're somewhere else. It's not somebody else, it's somewhere else, isn't it? Where all that money is going?
You're right, somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know, you tax these ordinary people, and I see, I visit my old practice from time to time. Some of these people are impoverished beyond despair. And, you know, we then take this taxpayers' money and give it to foreign lands, and we keep promising more and more. These foreign lands, we don't owe them anything. Why do we keep giving money away? And why do we keep diluting the economy of our country with influx of people who don't work and then threaten our society?
Yeah, then complain that they're left on our streets. So it's a very, very upside down world right now, isn't it?
I don't have a problem getting people behind one party if that one party would behave like a magnanimous big tent that we can all get behind together and re-establish, the sort of expectations of the people of the country. We got to put this country first. We got to put our people's lives first.
Do you think
if American can do that, why can't we do that too?
Well, I was just going to say, I'm wondering whether the example now being set, if that seemed to work in the next year or so, whether actually people will say, no, we were misled about this man, and maybe this is the way to go. Because, I don't think any of us really know what people are like and what their characters are like. And, there's a lot of faith being put in Donald Trump at the moment, but I can't see anyone else doing anything that is in any way positive. And as I said earlier, we need to sit back and eat the popcorn, watch the show, and see if it really transpires as the way that we want it to, and then we should be adopting a model very similar to that. Please sign up to receive our newsletter, and you'll be notified of UK MFA campaigns, open letters, calls to action, and any important updates. You can do this on our website at ukmedfreedom.org. That's ukmedfreedom.org.
We should just be single-minded about getting the country right again.
Yeah,
time is running out.
It's the WHO though, isn't it? It's the not the World Health Organization. The WHO, as in who is this person that's going to step forward
Yes.
and have the strength. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see, I guess. I mean, as a medical organisation, obviously, we just want to see someone leading the country that will definitely prevent what happened last time, and not put up with the nonsense, and to take things seriously and not mislead their public, and give people proper good health advice, and not put a mask on your face and stay 6 feet away from someone else, which was all stuff that was made up, as it turns out anyway, admitted by the lovely Dr. Fauci. So clearly that we need to pick someone that's going to stand up and do that with strength and honour, and that's something we don't have right now.
I'll help do my little bit. I think what we need to do is to actually encourage people, excite them that they can do something about it. We have local elections coming up fairly soon, on the 1st of May. Let us win control of a few councils. Okay, I don't care which party you vote for, as long as the party is aligned with the people. Let's win a few councils, and let's change the way health is looked after in those constituencies, those county councils. Let's try and change the way the profession looks after the people, get the health back on the stream again. Let's start with health. In the wider context, if your MP isn't listening to you, look at Section 4, Public Order, under harassment. If you feel harassed, you feel distressed, try and get a recall order. If nothing, at least your MP knows that you're serious about getting rid of him.
Is that guidance that you've published somewhere? Is that on your website, for example?
It's on my Twitter page.
Right. Cool. Okay. So I encourage people then to read that and maybe follow this up.
Yes.
Because something that does definitely need to be done. So right now, is there any major party, the ones that have got some votes and got some MPs in government, that you think are our best hope for turning things around from a medical ethics point of view?
Ian, it's a very embarrassing question, an answer which I must say with humility. I would not be in politics if there was anybody, politician or a doctor, who understands what needs to be done to improve our health system. And I use the word health system in the broadest sense of the word. It's not just the NHS, because it's a state-dominated system, and I alluded to how it's been corrupted and the standards have moved towards mediocrity. We need to be cognizant of the fact that this society is a pluralistic society. There are people who work hard, people who are rich, people who are poor. The basic conscience of the medical profession is to deliver care without distinction as to people's station in life. And that is my goal. I would dearly love to be in a position where I can enact that philosophy and make sure that everyone benefits. I mean, just think, one day you might be rich, next thing you might have lost your fortune and you'll be treated differently. I don't want that sort of society. Neither do I want a society that are full of freeloaders and don't bother working.
No, I mean, your answer says it all, really. I mean, I'm just probably poking you a little bit, I suppose, in the sense, because it's so frustrating. Looking from the outside, I mean, I'm not a medic. I'm nothing. I'm just trying to help out best I can. But I look from my point of view, and I just don't see anything or anyone who's really serious about making the changes that we need. Not right now.
No.
It was quite obvious whenever things like that are discussed in Parliament, the whole place empties. People aren't interested in discussing anything that's
shameful, isn't it? Shameful, utterly shameful.
Yeah. So they shouldn't be MPs because they haven't got the moral fibre to take that role on. And it's also true from an ethical point of view, I know they're very touchy subjects, but the subject of abortion, the subject of trans, the subject of assisted dying, all of these very, very touchy subjects for many people. But none of them appear to be being approached from what I would say is a morally good, ethical approach to any of them. It always just seems to be some kind of fad at the time, something that's being promoted to the detriment of the people. They're not bringing people together and discussing it sensibly. And there seem to be a lot of wedges being driven between various factions of people, which again is no good for your health, regardless of anything else. I mean, we're being separated from each other in every way, shape, or form that they seem to be. Whoever they are, but even down to artificial intelligence, basically meaning that you don't have to leave your house to create something. I'm a musician. That's what keeps me busy. But I can go online and I can create music now without ever walking out of my house. I don't have to meet other people to collaborate with and make some music. That's not healthy. That to me is morally wrong and would bring people into depression and psychological issues. That's what I feel. Sorry, I'm ranting, but I just wonder what you thought about that.
I think so. If we're not careful and function as normal human beings, we'll be supplanted by machines. I mean, I'm not sure whether you've endured the frustration of trying to get some glitches, say with banking, for example, online, and you have to wait ages. You get passed from one menu to another, and a simple thing which, if you saw the person in the bank, you get it sorted out. Nowadays, it takes ages. It's so frustrating.
Yes.
Now, my concern is this, though, with AI. If we are not careful, we will be imprisoned by the system. Because if for example, if an AI system makes a mistake and you want it corrected and it can't be corrected, you're lumbered with that problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is frightening. It's frightening. And to think that in health, a machine can replace a human being, there are decisions that take into that extra dimension, which in my lifetime, I doubt whether AI can take over, and that's understanding the intangible, emotional aspect of human life.
No, but AI seems to be diagnosing right now, in a way.
Right. I know who I'd rather speak with.
Exactly. Yeah, but even if you visit your GP, they're still going through screens. It seems to me you give them a set of symptoms, and then they go through the screens without the symptoms, and then at the end of it pumps out a drug that you need to take.
It's a shame.
That's my experience. I mean, I've actually did recent experience, and I find that really, really worrying. Of the pharmacy near where I live, where I go and collect my medicines, there's now a huge cabinet with every pharmaceutical drug in that cabinet, and there's now an electronic arm picking now and dispensing. The pharmacist, I guess, is writing it off, but there's no one making up drugs anymore. There's a robot doing it.
My God.
So I know I'm laughing, but I think I want to laugh rather than cry.
Right. Good.
Anyway, the only other thing I wanted to ask you about, the module 4 is always finished, and now there'll be a report obviously submitted by Baroness Hallett, and I just wonder what your expectations might be of that.
Well, all I can say is while they're still deliberating, harm's being caused. And while harm is being caused, it doesn't have to be harm caused today. There have been harms that have been initiated from, say, an immunization point sometime in the past. What I'm particularly concerned about is those conditions that take a long time to manifest. So if we're talking about an autoimmune condition, if we're talking about the development of cancer, they don't appear within 24 hours, 48 hours, or anything like that. Yet if the clinical service does not entertain the likelihood of a connection between the immunization and what the pathology is, then I think we have failed. We have failed by A, allowing it to continue, B, by pushing it aside and dismissing it as coincidence or unrelated.
Yes. Well, I guess we'll wait and see what that's like. We've got a press conference tomorrow in Westminster,
Yes.
and we'll see how we get on with that. In the meantime, is there anything else you'd like to tag on the end before we close up? And
well, I would encourage people to ask themselves, is their MP looking after them? Is their MP acting in the best interest of the country? If not, please look at how you can initiate a recall. And a more immediate thing is, if you want better health care, please look carefully on the 1st of May who you want to vote for. And if you don't have any plans or ideas who you like to vote for, and if you like an improvement in health in your locality, please get in touch with me through my Twitter or what's now called the X, my X account, and speak with me, and we'll try and organise something.
Lovely. Okay, well, I'll add details in the description underneath this video so people can get in touch with you.
Is at Dr. Teck Khong on X or Twitter.
No problem. And I just wondered, just finally, when we're looking at a list of candidates for those elections, it might not be ADF that they're seeing, but there'll be another. But there'll be another. Right. So how do they ensure it's one of those that are aligned?
Well, I'll be retweeting it again, emphasising it. There'll be Freedom Alliance. There'll be English Democrats. There'll be the ADF, and there'll be in Scotland the Sovereignty Party. We have Propel in Wales. So we're promoting our colleagues, what we call Belmont partners. And Belmont took the name from the hotel where we met in Leicester, the Belmont Hotel, and we call it the Belmont Declaration.
Great. Okay. Well, I think I saw there's a page on that for that, isn't there, on your website? So yes. I'll direct people there too. So, Teck, thank you so much for your time. Been enlightening as ever, and we'll try not to leave it as long next time. So,
thank you very much, Ian.
Thanks for your time. Thank you.
Great to be on the channel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. See you soon.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.